I arrived at the ski resort on December 3, 2001. I put on my ski equipment and excitedly rushed to the gondola. When the gondola reached the top of the mountain, I saw a beautiful white snow covering the surrounding mountains, which made me feel extra excited. I glided down the ski slope, enjoying the speed and freedom. Suddenly, I came across an icy area. My body lost its balance and I fell heavily to the ground. I felt a sharp pain spread through my fingers. I saw my thumb bent into a strange shape. I realized that my thumb was probably broken. I tried to squeeze my finger hard, but the pain became more intense. I rushed to find a nearby staff member. When I arrived at the hospital, my finger was already very swollen. After an initial examination, the doctor told me I needed surgery because I had broken my thumb. I felt very scared, but I knew it was necessary. The staff quickly scheduled me for surgery and took me to the operating room. An anesthesiologist and a nurse were preparing to put me under anesthesia. However, the anesthesiologist left on short notice, leaving only the nurse behind. Not long after, I suddenly felt dizzy. My breathing became more and more difficult, as if something was pressing on my chest. I felt like I was going to suffocate. I started to feel very scared and didn't know what was happening. I tried to scream, but something seemed to be stuck in my throat. My consciousness was getting fuzzy and everything around me started to become a blur. I later learned that the anesthetic had been injected into my arteries by the nurse. Eventually, it went directly into my heart. This mistake caused my body to react violently, and my breathing and heartbeat began to become irregular. Suddenly, I heard a loud bang. It was as if my body had been torn apart. A strong force pulled me out of my body. My pain disappeared and the feeling was very relaxing. Suddenly, I heard the screams of the nurses. The nurse rushed out of the operating room, shouting as she ran. At that time, I didn't know what was happening. I started to feel confused and scared. Then, the doctors burst into my room. They used various devices to monitor my heartbeat and breathing while starting emergency treatment. I was like a bystander, standing next to the operating table. Around me, nurses were handling various equipment and medications. I could see their hands moving rapidly, and their faces wore expressions of concentration and tension. They were injecting some kind of drug into my body. Suddenly, a hand was pressed against my head. A man's voice told me, "It's time for you to get out of here." As the hand pressed on my head, I felt a mysterious force. I felt my soul become lighter. When I turned around, I didn't find anyone. I didn't know where the voice was coming from. I found no one around me except the doctor and the nurse. Suddenly, I appeared in a meadow. The grass around me was very high, almost up to my waist. A breeze blew by and I smelled a sweet aroma. I lay down on the grass and felt a sense of comfort I had never felt before. In this world, everything seemed to have life. Every tree, every leaf, every blade of grass has its own story. They showed me the beauty and infinite possibilities of life with their soft gestures. A huge tree suddenly appeared in front of my eyes, its height surpassing any tree I had ever seen. Its dense leaves seemed to cover the entire sky. The bark appeared to be made up of countless tiny lines, like a giant picture scroll. The branches were covered with fruits of all shapes and sizes, all glittering attractively. There were many small animals playing under the tree. As I walked under the tree, I felt a surge of energy pouring into my body. Here, time became eternal. I gazed at the bark of the tree and noticed that it was covered with countless tiny holes. I noticed that the lines on the bark were not stationary, but were writhing as if they were communicating with me. I started to climb up the roots of the tree. In the tree, I saw all kinds of life forms, which all found their homes in the trunk. The tree seemed to be a large nature library. I continued climbing upward. Here, I felt the mysterious power of the universe. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. I felt myself merging into this tree of life and becoming a part of it. When I reached the top of the tree, I saw a huge cloud. It emanated a sacred aura, an aura that captivated me. The edges of the cloud emitted a faint white light. Suddenly, an unmistakable light penetrated the cloud. This light filled me with power and hope inside. The bright light in the cloud grew stronger and stronger, and my body began to glow as if the whole world was illuminated. I began to hear countless voices calling my name. These voices felt familiar and unfamiliar to me. A mysterious force was guiding me, and I slowly walked toward that light. The light was getting stronger and stronger, as if it was going to swallow everything. I was not afraid, but felt very calm. As I entered the light, I felt my soul began to vibrate incessantly, as if it was being illuminated and purified by a mysterious power. My thinking also became clear, as if my mind had entered a higher level of consciousness. I didn't know the source of this power, but I knew it was guiding me. In the light, I saw countless mysterious patterns and shapes, as if they were expressions of some kind of wisdom. Next, countless images flashed before my eyes. All were snippets of my past life, every second of which was recorded. I saw scenes of myself as a child, good times with friends and relatives, and difficulties I had encountered. These images seemed to be alive and kept surfacing before my eyes. These clips recorded my growth and experiences. I saw the dreams and goals I once had, and I also saw my current state and achievements. Suddenly, the voice reappeared. He asked me when was the most impressive moment in these images. I pondered for a moment and thought that moment would be the day I finished my doctorate. Suddenly, the image before me came to the day I graduated. I stepped onto the campus of my alma mater in a modest outfit. As I stood on the stage and received the certificate from my teacher, I felt a great sense of pride and excitement inside. People throughout the hall cheered and I felt their recognition of me. I could see the expressions of my family as they hugged me with excitement. My mother shed tears of excitement, and my father patted my shoulder with excitement. The voice reappeared and he asked me, "Is there more?" I felt a little confused, as if he wasn't too happy with the answer I gave. I remembered that I had won the downtown championship in a ski competition. The scene in front of me changed again. This time, I saw a snowy white mountain. The scene of my skiing appeared before my eyes and I felt the cold air brush against my cheeks. That speed made my heart beat faster, but I was still full of confidence and courage. Finally, I reached the finish line and became the skiing champion of our city. A cheer came from my side. The voice reappeared, and he didn't affirm or deny my actions. He simply said, "Let's see this." Suddenly, another image came to my eyes. It was a little boy who looked very thin and was wearing tattered clothes. He was squatting on the side of the road crying. The little boy looked very confused and I could feel his helplessness. I asked him, "Do you need help?" He nodded, and I started to take him to find his way home. On the way, I told him many interesting stories, hoping to distract him from his fear. Finally, we found his home. This incident was many years ago and I had long forgotten about it. He told me that learning to help others is the most important thing, as opposed to personal honor. When that voice said that, I began to reflect on my own life. I realized that I had been too focused on my own success and had neglected others around me. He asked me, "Did anyone help you in the process of earning your doctorate?" I thought about it for a moment. And indeed there were many people who helped me. The voice went on to say, "Your success is not just because of your own efforts, but also because of the support and help of others. Your achievements become meaningful when you can help others." I felt very ashamed. I realized that despite my success in some areas, I didn't seem to be doing well in helping others. The voice finally told me, "You have a lot to learn, and it's time for you to go back." I realized that my soul was beginning to move backwards. I was moving quickly away from this place. Once again, many images appeared before my eyes. I felt like I was traveling through the bonds of time and space, heading in an unknown direction. Suddenly, I felt pain in my body, as if something was tormenting me. I returned to my hospital bed. I slowly opened my eyes as doctors and nurses gathered around me. Later, I experienced a brief coma. It took a month for my health to slowly improve. My memory began to clear up and I remembered the mysterious voice and everything I had experienced. I realized that I needed to rethink my life. While my personal accomplishments made me proud, they didn't represent the whole of who I was. I needed to focus more on how I could help others and how I could become a better person. This time of pain and suffering taught me that the most important thing in life is not personal achievement, but how to make a positive impact on others. Later, I joined a volunteer organization to help people in need in any way I could. I also started to be active in some charity activities. I know that I still have a lot to learn, but I will keep going.
Back in September 2013, my husband and I got married. For the first year of our marriage, we were both very happy and joyful. As time went by, the arguments between us became more and more frequent. At one point, I overheard that he was gambling. He didn't deny his behavior and admitted that he owed a lot of money outside. At that time, I still wanted to give him a chance, but he still cheated on me. 3 months later, I received a collection call from my bank. I was shocked and disappointed, and I knew he was continuing to gamble. He even took out a mortgage on our house. These things hurt me a lot and left me feeling very disappointed and miserable. I couldn't believe he would do this, and I felt betrayed. Later, when he knelt in front of me and asked me to forgive him, I felt very conflicted. I wasn't sure if he would really change. I told him that I needed some time to think about this. I needed to leave him for a while, to give me some space and time. He acted disappointed when he heard my decision. He continued to ask me to give him a chance, and he assured me that he would change and would try to make up for his mistake. It wasn't easy to leave him for a while, but I knew it was the right decision. Finally, I told him that I wanted him to take his problems seriously. I wanted him to be a better person and to take responsibility for his actions. Later, I moved to a new apartment and started a life of my own. Although I still felt pain and disappointment, I also gradually found hope and confidence. Although the experience took a toll on me, I also learned a lot from it. I learned how to protect myself. After 3 months, I knew I had to face reality, and I asked my husband for a formal divorce. I decided to work out our financial issues so we could both end the marriage and start a new life as soon as possible. One day, I made an appointment with both my husband and my attorney at home. We discussed in depth the debts and assets involved in our marriage and decided how to proceed with an agreed distribution. I felt that this process was painful because it meant that I had to deal with this failed marriage. My attorney provided me with a lot of help and support during this process to ensure that we reached a fair agreement. Eventually, we signed the divorce agreement. We decided to go through the final divorce the following week. That night, as I was getting ready to wash up and go to bed, I heard someone walk in. I raised my guard, and it turned out to be my husband. I asked him why he had a key to my house, and he didn't answer me, he just stood there silently. I started to get a little scared. I didn't know why he was in my house at this time. I knew he wanted the money on me, because he knew I had some money on me. He had mentioned it once before, but I had turned it down. He told me that he needed the money to pay his bills, but I would not trust him again. I knew that he would continue to gamble when he had the money, and that would only worsen our problems. I looked at him and my mood started to get bad. This man used to be the closest person to me, but now he had become a completely different person. This made me very sad. I told him that I would not give him any more money. I couldn't let him ruin my life anymore. He started to assure me that he would change. But I knew that it was too late and I couldn't trust him anymore. After I rejected him, he started to get emotional. He seemed very angry. I began to pray in my heart, God, I need your help. He kept apologizing while he was still trying to get me to borrow money. I wanted to call the police. When he wasn't looking, I ran into the bedroom. I was about to unlock the door when he forced his way into the bedroom. He was screaming at me. It felt like his soul had been taken over by the devil. He picked up the ashtray on the table and smashed it on my head. He yelled out of his mouth, I'm going to kill you. I fell to the floor. I was about to get up and run away when he grabbed me again. Once again, he smashed the ashtray on my head. I had no more strength to resist. My eyes were getting blurry and the sounds around me were getting smaller and smaller. Suddenly, I felt like I was entering a tunnel. I knew that my prayers had been answered. I was ready to receive God's love and guidance. Then a pure light surrounded me and made me feel endlessly loved. The feeling was so real that I felt like I was in the arms of God. I can't describe my current environment in words. God wrapped me with His love. Suddenly, my soul began to move quickly. I appeared in a peaceful environment, which was filled with divine aura. It was a beautiful place. I felt my soul was purified and I no longer had pain and worries. A white gate appeared in front of me and I knew this was where I was going to be. I walked through the gate and was greeted by a beautiful angel. She smiled at me and then led me to a square. I watched as many angels gathered around the square, all of them full of joy and enthusiasm. I noticed that some angels were dancing and others were talking to each other. Their energy filled the whole square and made me feel overwhelmed and happy. The angels told me that this is the welcome square in heaven. Whenever a new soul arrives here, the angels hold a great welcoming ceremony. This square is a place of love where every soul can receive God's mercy and blessing. I looked at the angels around me, and they were all so beautiful. They emanated a pure light from their bodies that made me feel overwhelmingly warm. Each newly arrived soul was dressed in a white robe. The angels told me that this was the traditional dress of heaven, representing the purity and immaculate nature of our souls. Then, these souls walked towards a beautiful fountain. The angel sprinkled the water from the fountain on their bodies. A dazzling light began to shine around them. Then the angels began to play beautiful songs, and their voices floated throughout the square. In the midst of the beautiful songs, these souls began to dance. I could feel their excitement and joy, and they seemed to have completely integrated into this wonderful world. After the welcome ceremony, the angels began to lead these souls into their future living quarters. I could see that there were many different living areas in heaven, and each soul could choose a place that suited them to start their new life. There was a beautiful garden with all kinds of flowers and trees. Souls can relax here and immerse themselves in the beauty of nature. In the center of the garden, there is a small lake with very clear water. Each soul can enjoy their personal time here alone. I also saw a dense urban community where people interact and learn. The buildings are very distinctive. They can make new friends here. Finally, I saw a small town by the sea. There are white sandy beaches and blue water. You can enjoy the sunshine here. There are also many special handicrafts in the town. Each living site has a unique charm. The souls can choose a place that suits their interests and preferences. When I was ready to explore other areas, the angel beside me told me that there were some places I could not go right now. When I was confused, the angel smiled and said to me, "You can go see the gardens here, and you can also go for a walk by the river." Then, we walked to a river. The water was so clear that I could see every stone at the bottom of the river. On the bank of the river, I saw a lot of people talking. They looked so happy, without any worries or pain. Led by the angel, we came to a huge library with countless books inside. The angel told me that all the history of human past was recorded here. In every corner of heaven, I could feel the endless peace and happiness. The angel took me to another building. She told me that this was the place that belonged to God. Curious, I asked the angel if I could go in now. The angel smiled and told me, "Your time has not yet come, and it is time to take you back. Your mission is not yet complete." Although a little lost, I knew it was God's will and I should obey his arrangement. The angel guided me back into my body and I felt my breath and heartbeat again. When I opened my eyes, I felt a strong pain. I saw my husband sitting on the floor, his hands were covered with blood, and his body was trembling. He cried and said to me, "Please forgive me, what have I done? What have I done?" He kept repeating this phrase. Looking at him like this, my heart was also filled with confusion. I now had no strength to speak, and could only look at him silently. Suddenly, he knelt down and begged me not to call the police. His tone was full of helplessness and fear. Finally, he helped me call the emergency number. When I was taken to the hospital, I immediately reported the incident to the police. My husband was arrested for malicious wounding. The divorce proceedings were quickly completed and I felt like I was out of a nightmare. I no longer felt scared because I knew I could be strong and face any difficulties in my life. Later, I joined a charitable organization that provides support and assistance to those who are victims of domestic violence. These efforts made me feel meaningful and made me appreciate what I had even more. I didn't know why my ex-husband had stopped his violent behavior. 8 years later, I got my answer. That day, I received a phone call from a stranger. The man's voice sounded both strange and familiar. It turned out to be my ex-husband, who had found my contact information. He started apologizing to me over and over, asking me to forgive him and saying that he didn't want to go to hell when he died. I was shocked when this call came in. He began to recount the scene from that night. He was holding an ashtray and wanted to continue bashing me over the head. Suddenly, he felt an invisible force that stopped him. He saw a dazzling light, and then a man dressed in white appeared before him. He thought it was God incarnate. This person asked him, "Are you sure you want to kill your wife?" He was feeling as if he had been electrocuted, and his whole body was stunned. He didn't know how to answer. The man in white said, "Do you want to be forgiven by God? Then go and save your wife." He realized he was doing something wrong and stopped his violent behavior. He called the hospital. I listened to the voice on the other end of the phone, and it was like I was back to that night. I told my ex-husband that I forgave him and wished him a happy life. Although the call brought back memories of that horrible experience, it also showed me some of the warmth and humanity. I hope he will continue to change and become a better person.